It started like any other Tuesday, a proper run-of-the-mill, nothing special Tuesday. The sun was doing its thing, birds were making a racket, and across Australia, millions of people were hitting the snooze button for the third time. In Melbourne, a bloke named Gaz was halfway through his morning ritual, scrolling through memes on his phone while waiting for the kettle to boil. He was about to send a particularly brilliant cat video to his mate Dave, when the little loading wheel just kept spinning. He sighed, figuring the Wi-Fi was having a moment. It did that sometimes. He toggled it off and on again. Nothing. He tried his 5G. Still nothing. Weird. He decided to make his toast and worry about the great cat video crisis of 2025 later. Across the country, similar scenes were playing out, like a million tiny, baffling mysteries all happening at once. In a Sydney office, a caffeine-fueled finance worker stared blankly at her screen. All her international market feeds had flatlined. In a ute barreling down a dusty road in the Pilbara, the GPS on the dashboard suddenly declared it was in the middle of the Indian Ocean. The driver, a FIFO worker named Shazza, gave the unit a solid whack with the palm of her hand. That usually fixed it, but not today. The little car icon just sat there, blinking forlornly, surrounded by a sea of digital blue. It was just a flicker of strangeness at first, an annoyance you'd complain about at Smoko, but it was the start of something much, much bigger. Out in the bush, life has always been a bit tougher, a bit more self-reliant. But even there, the tendrils of satellite technology had wrapped themselves around daily existence. For farmers like Bruce, out past Wagga Wagga, the silence was a different kind of problem. His day started not with a dead phone, but with a multi-million-dollar piece of farm equipment refusing to do its job. His high-tech tractor, guided by GPS to seed crops with centimeter-perfect precision, was now just a very large, very green paperweight. It needed satellite data to know where to go, how much seed to drop, and which parts of the paddock it had already covered. Without it, he was flying blind. Communication in the outback, already a tricky business, went from difficult to impossible. The satellite phones that doctors from the Royal Flying Doctor Service and remote station owners relied on were dead. The NBN Sky Muster satellite service, the only internet connection for hundreds of thousands of rural Australians, was gone. The moment the satellites died was terrifying for anyone in motion. Imagine being the captain of a Qantas A380 halfway across the Pacific Ocean on a non-stop flight from Los Angeles to Sydney. 1 second, your flight deck is a sea of calm, glowing screens showing your precise location, the weather ahead, and the positions of other aircraft hundreds of miles away. The next second, it all goes blank. We think of money as something solid, something you can hold. But in 2025, it was mostly just numbers, just ones and zeros zipping through the sky. When the satellites that carried those numbers died, the global financial system didn't just stumble, it fell off a cliff. The first and most obvious problem was at the checkout. PayWave, Apple Pay, even just inserting your card and entering a PIN. In a crisis, the first thing you do is call for help. You dial 000-000, but that simple act is a technological marvel. The call is routed to an operator who sees your approximate location ping up on a map, thanks to data from your phone's GPS. They dispatch the nearest ambulance, police car, or fire truck, guiding them through the streets using a computer-aided dispatch system. It's funny what you miss. In the middle of all the chaos, the banking collapses, and the transport nightmares, people started to notice a different kind of silence. The silence of the evening. After a long, stressful day of trying to figure out the new rules of a broken world, Gaz got home and did what he always did. He slumped onto the couch and reached for the TV remote. The first week was chaos. The second was about survival. But by the third week, something new began to emerge. Adaptation. Humanity, faced with a problem that couldn't be solved by turning it off and on again, started to remember. We remembered how to do things the old way. In libraries, which suddenly became the most important buildings in town, people hunted for books on things they'd once just Googled. How to preserve food. Months passed. The world did not end. It was harder, yes, it was quieter. It was smaller, but it kept turning. The initial shock gave way to a new kind of normal. In the great silence left by the dead satellites, we started to hear other things. We heard the birds again. We heard the sound of kids playing in the street. We heard the voices of our neighbors not through a phone, but over the back fence. We'd been so connected to the globe that we had become disconnected from the people standing right next to us. The disaster had, in a strange and painful way, given us a chance to fix that. Of course, the best minds in the world were working on the problem. We learned we were not masters of the universe, but clever monkeys living on a fragile rock, utterly dependent on the bits of metal we'd flung into the sky. People were more resourceful, more resilient. Communities were stronger. We were learning to value real things again: a conversation, a homegrown tomato, a helping hand from a neighbor, a clear, starry night sky unspoiled by artificial light. And that's a network that no amount of space junk can ever break.